Theresa May and the EU have announced that a breakthrough deal has finally been reached to move the Brexit talks on to future trade and a transitional period, after days of tortuous negotiations. The Prime Minister arrived in Brussels before 6 a.m. on Friday to stage a joint press conference with EU leaders, following discussions with the Democratic Unionist Party that stretched long into the night. Standing alongside Ms. May, Claude-Juncker, the European Commission President, said sufficient progress had been made on all three so-called divorce issues: the Irish border, a financial settlement and EU citizens' rights. Ms. May said it hasn't been easy for either side, arguing there had been give and take on both sides to strike an agreement that was a significant improvement. And she pointed to the prize of success moving on to talks on future trade, saying, doing so will provide clarity and certainty for businesses in the United Kingdom and the European Union. The Prime Minister also argued she had reached a financial settlement, fair for the British taxpayer. It is expected to be at least £45 billion, with top-up payments for future market access likely. But Ms. May claimed the payout would allow the government to invest more in our priorities of housing, schools and the NHS. And on the Irish border, she admitted that specific solutions to the unique circumstances of Northern Ireland would still need to be found, suggesting the deal was still a fudge. On EU citizens, Mr. Juncker pointed to possible trouble ahead, saying, for EU citizens, the ECJ European Court of Justice will still be competent. The text of the agreement showed disputes involving EU citizens in the UK can be referred to the ECJ for 8 years longer than the UK wanted, and a likely flashpoint with hard Brexit supporting Tory MPs. Moments later, Donald Tusk, the EU Council President representing the member states, said the UK, in a transition period, would have to accept the whole of EU law, including new law. In Belfast, Arlene Foster, the DUP leader, said she had secured 6 substantive changes to the text which it vetoed on Monday over the issue of regulatory alignment with the EU to avoid a hard land border in Ireland. The DUP had stamped on the proposal, ruling out anything that treated Northern Ireland differently from the rest of the UK, and claimed it had won concessions. There is no red line down the Irish Sea and clear confirmation that the entirety of the UK is leaving the European Union, leaving the single market and leaving the customs union, Ms. Foster said. But she warned, there are still matters that we would have liked to see clarified. We ran out of time, essentially. We think we needed to go back again and talk about those matters, but the Prime Minister has decided to go to Brussels. Ms. Foster suggested the DUP could still vote against the final Brexit deal. The agreement gives the Stormont Assembly, when restored, a block on any new trade barriers between the Northern Ireland and the UK, in the absence of an overarching free trade agreement with the EU after March 2019. A crucial text reads, in the absence of agreed solutions, the United Kingdom will maintain alignment with those rules of the internal market and the customs union which now or in the future support North-South cooperation, the island economy and the protection of the 1998 agreement. The Irish government insisted it had achieved all that it had been seeking in the intensive negotiations over the last few days, pointing to a guarantee of avoiding a hard border. Mr. Juncker stressed that the deal remained a Commission recommendation, saying the decision on sufficient progress will be in the hands of the 27 heads of state or government. They meet at a summit next Thursday. Ms. May was asked whether she had ever considered during negotiations that, maybe after all, this whole Brexit affair is a very bad idea. She replied, the British people voted and they voted to leave the European Union. I believe it's a matter of trust and integrity in politicians. I believe the people should be able to trust that the politicians will put into place what they have determined. That's exactly what we're doing, and we will leave the European Union. Nigel Farage was quick to tweet his disapproval, saying, a deal in Brussels is good news. For Mrs. May, as we can now move on to the next stage of humiliation. Reuse content.